Scotty Vosberg, Director of Operations for Shabby Paints.
And I'm Christy Kuehl, owner of Pieces of Time in Fairfield, California, a Shabby Paint stylist.
Today we'll be demonstrating some starter techniques using Shabby Paint's Shabby Shimmers. Over this marine blue, we are going to use the Shabby Shimmer Sapphire C, and we have thinned it a bit to a 50-50 mixture with water because the thinner these paints are applied, the more shimmery and sparkly that they become. And to get that fantastic shimmery cobalt look that we're looking for, we've gone ahead and diluted it. It makes application really easy, it makes drying time minuscule, and it gives you a fantastic look.
Let's get started. So one of the benefits of working with the Shabby Shimmer paints diluted with water is, besides the great finish that Scotty was speaking of, it goes on almost like vegetable oil. It is extremely easy to spread, and you're working with very little product at a time, and you can already see the shimmer as it goes on.
The catch with any metallic paint is that you want to be working in the same direction so that you can avoid the stop and start marks that you can get. With brushing on a metallic product, because of the way that the metallic pigments lay down, you're always going to get brush strokes if you use a brush. If you want a perfectly smooth metallic finish with no lines and no strokes, you're going to need to either use a roller or you're going to need to use a sprayer, both of which are completely possible with Shabby Shimmers. It's best to kind of try to keep your strokes always going in the same direction and use them to your advantage to give you more of a brushed metal look than trying to go for that perfect stroke-free finish with a brush. And if your final stroke on every line is in the same direction, the delineations between your brush strokes will be a lot less noticeable because all the pigments will be laying in the same direction. It may sound tricky, but don't be afraid to try it out on a sample board first so you can get used to the process before you start on your big piece.
By applying a base coat first of one of the Shabby paints and then applying a diluted version of the shimmer paints, you get more shimmer. The water really enhances the shimmer. You can use the shimmer paints straight, but you get better coverage because they're a gel-based paint when you have a coat of the Shabby paint color underneath first. So with our vintage pieces, we try to keep the hardware all original. A lot of the time when we get the hardware, they'll have rust on them. And since I'm going to be using a base coat of our Shabby Licorice, which is our black, and top it with the Shimmer Paint Smoked Pearl, because this has rust on it and I'm using the black, I can just paint the paint over the top of the hardware. If I was choosing to do a white or a lighter color, I would first put a coat of Shabby Vax, the sheer Vax, over it, and it will seal it and eliminate any chance of bleed through, and then you can paint your base coat. So I'm going to go ahead and take my brush. So you just dip very little product on your brush and you're going to dab it on, and you can see how that covers everything. And we're just going to dab it on there to give it a really good base coat before we decide to put our coat of Smoked Pearl shimmer paint over the hardware. And with the black, very little goes a long way, and of course we get one coat coverage. And we just let those dry. They just don't make hardware like this anymore. It's always simple. These are so ornate and beautiful, and once they've been covered and given new dimension, they're gorgeous. People are all the time asking if I buy new hardware, and I very rarely replace the hardware on the pieces. So we're going to let these dry, and I'll come back in a few minutes to put on the final coat of the Smoked Pearl. So since our piece has some natural raised detail here, we decided to go ahead and highlight that. Once again, we've taken the Smoked Pearl shimmer paint and we've diluted it with 50% water, and we're just going to paint over this diamond to give it a little contrast to the blue with the smoked pearl. So let's go. So if I was going to leave these pulls black, which I often do, I would put 2 coats and then put a final coat of wax, the clear wax over the top of them. But because I want these pulls for our little shimmery buffet, we're going to be adding the Shabby Paints Shimmer Paint, the smoked pearl to them. So I've only done 1 coat of licorice, which is all you need. And then I'm going to dip a little bit of the shimmer and I'm going to apply it over the pull just in the same fashion that I did with the licorice paint. And once it's on there, we're going to set it down and let it dry, and that will be our finished product once it's done. The shimmer paints I use a lot on the hardware. Even if you're not using the shimmer paints on the piece itself, it adds a nice little sparkle or a nice little added touch of glam to your piece. I know a lot of people get into doing the glass knobs and the bejeweled knobs, but I like I said before, I like to keep the hardware original. So if I can add a little bit of sparkle to the original hardware, I prefer to do that. So now we're going to let these dry and we're going to add them back to the drawers and the doors, and our piece will be finished. For more information on this or any Shabby Paints product, please visit shabbypaints.com.